Morning, everyone. I'm here to present before you my first font that I've designed for Google Fonts. Every typeface is a testament to the time when it has been designed. The Mina Font project has strived to adhere to the same ideology. There is undoubtedly a need to respond to the rapidly evolving requirements in the new globalized, multi-script, multi-language typographic environments. Through this, an important discourse is constantly created between the tradition and the modernity among communities, thereby providing a fresh and refined identity to them. In such a scenario, to cope with the scarcity of the availability in terms of typography in certain scripts, in this case, Bangla, it is quite evident that new designers like myself end up looking for inspirations from the existing, more available styles. Mina took the design cues from the existing Latin exo as well. My past experience in advertising gave me an opportunity to explore constantly with forms while designing logos and for clients or working with letters at various levels. This aspect got carried along with while trying to explore the definitive form for my first font. My approach was based on the context of both the ongoing trend and the future potential and consideration of the various audiences, along with the inherent lack of standard in the digital context with respect to the Bangla script. There are different approaches taken to teach how to write a language. I was introduced writing Bangla by being introduced to the art samples already available in the Bangla culture. The simple contours of Alpona, ritual paintings on the floor of the house, mainly painted by Bengali women at the time of religious festivals, played a significant role. Most of the Bengali kids till date are introduced to writing systems with the help of a wooden stylus dipped in milk that acts as the ink during the Saraswati Puja, or Vasant Panchami as it's popularly known. All the geometric shapes in Alpona were drawn by using clay. To my earliest memories, graphemes were introduced after teaching straight lines, adjoining lines with dots, triangles, rectangles, and circles respectively. These basic shapes were gradually metamorphosed into graphemic shapes, which is often a new and a strange experience for the first-time learners. Graphemes on the basis of their homogeneity, examples like the sounds of ba, ra, ka, dha, jha, etc., with their atomic triangular graphemes, or shapes like o, ta, o, oi, with their basic circular shapes were often put together with the contours of Alpona to execute the learning process. In typography, we try to create shapes and forms, or in other words, textual context is shaped from the words, and the willingness to see shapes that we haven't previously seen draws more light to what can be done. This was the key line of thought initially while trying to conceive the form for my font, Mina. The different character forms which usually we see in Bangla are mostly varied on the grounds of modulation of the strokes and the nature of the curves. Most of the letter forms adhere to the styles where the features like the knots, buds, circular lobes, or the bowl, and the gentle curves on the diagonal strokes of the delta in certain characters. These are some of the key aspects that has helped me construct the overall style of the font. The initial drawing started with trying out a very square form with sharp rounded corners and straight strokes, the rounded knots being replaced with square ones, and the buds were slightly tapered with slightly tapered angular spurs. The ascender tails in some of the letters like Rosho and Dirgho, O and O, got straighter forms as well. The initial drawings of some of the letters like Do, Jo, and A also had tapered and sliced terminals of the vertical strokes. However, on further development of the basic letter forms, it became the need to stick to certain aspects of the known anatomy and incorporate them in an improvised manner. This led to the exclusion of the knots and the spurs from the structure, and it gave it to a more neo-humanist form. The curves became more gentle, losing their sharpness and getting flat endings, where they terminate into angular shears. The form achieved a more characteristic open apertures. Having worked on some of the basic forms for the vowel and the consonants, incorporating the same characteristics in some of the letters became quite a challenge. The letters like Po, Tho, and Bho are a few examples. Bangla has a rich cursive base, and by nature, the style of writing have had modulated strokes. The characteristics of the letters completely depend on the author's handwriting. The complex and cursive nature not only makes the characters difficult to construct as digital outlines, but also makes them less identifiable without a context. Mina, having the neo-humanist style of construction, have had less modulation in the strokes. The weight mostly increases on the outer lines along the curves and gradually straightens as they approach the terminals. With sharp corners, squared curves, and straight strokes in lieu of slow curves, the terminals are slightly angled like the Latin form of its exo. Well, the group of conjuncts are probably the most critical and debatable aspects of the Bangla script. This makes writing in Bangla quite difficult, but the overall not only does it make writing in Bangla difficult, but the overall practice of the language as well. And to transform these characters into type becomes quite a unique challenge. The varied cursive nature not only makes characters difficult to construct as digital outlines, but also makes them less identifiable, again, with respect to the context. There are examples of conjuncts where the letter form doesn't adhere to the inherent letter forms that builds them. So here is Kyoe Moe, which comprises of Ko and Sho and Mo. And that transforms into Kyoe Moe, which is completely a transformed character on its own. According to Professor Devobroto Bandopadhyay, a renowned linguist from the Indian Statistical Institute in Calcutta, who have been quite instrumental in letting me know the nuances about Bangla script, explains these as opaque characters of the script, and it further creates ambiguity among the learners of the language, irrespective of the age. He further explains that the different interpretations of such complex forms by different users creates further confusion, mostly among the young learners. During his involvement in the Education for All in India program, or the Sarva Siksha Abhiyan, on behalf of the Indian Statistical Institute, Calcutta, during the early 90s, he and his team observed that in spellings like Panchayat, where there is the use of conjunct Ioe and Cho, most of the students had immense difficulties in writing the complex structures. It became more difficult for them as there are different representations of the same complex letter forms, where the delta in the letter form can be written on either side of the vertical stem. Hence, the teachers were directed to mark the students correct who would spell the word in a more transparent manner by writing the inherent letters of the words, even without using the complex conjuncts. I wish I had the privilege of having some of the teachers like them. My Bengali score would have gone higher much. Writing is thus a language depicting another language, a set of signs for representing signs. The opacity and the inconstancy of the conjuncts has violated somehow the innocence of the original oral word with a monstrous perversiveness. Working on the conjuncts, maintaining the same sort of the style as a primary characters was a significant task. Not only do I feel the need for refinement in a number of these complex characters to create a balance in the space around and in between them, I also feel the need to scale some of these letter forms to create uniformity among the characters, especially when used with the Latin forms. Throughout the process of working on the conjuncts, the other aspect that intrigued me was the preference of the letters involved in their formation. What is the factor that determines which character will gain prominence over the other? Initially, it seemed that the letter that concluded the conjunct, while pronouncing it, gained the visual prominence. But on further studying them, I found that it didn't hold true to a lot of conjuncts. On further discussing the aspect with Professor Debobroto Bandyopadhyay, he mentions, and I quote, "Such ambiguity is one of the key reasons why the language has faced problems in the recent times. There has been quite an amount of redundancies in the formation of complex letter clusters, and special focus should be provided on the aspect." There is a need to find a way to avoid these redundancies. It is not enough now to have robust typefaces when the intended user of the typeface do not know or fail to understand the fundamental guidelines to which to apply them. The different Mina has two weights, regular and bold, respectively. This effectively enables the font to be used as a display typeface, but it will also work well at small to intermediate text sizes to be used across the user interface designs. Typeface design is a social form of designing, and this inspires me. I have always longed to see a Bangla font devoid of its characteristic features, vis-a-vis the rounding of the terminals or knots and contrasting bolds. The stroke movements, shapes, axis, knots, loops, and the ratio between the horizontal and the vertical strokes all played a significant role in the design, and the complex conjuncts required a substantial attention while working on the project. Combining the letters with the curvilinear nature with the style I intended was challenging. Constructing them with a digital tool that are more Latin-centric, like naming the glyphs required for the testing to adhere to the open type features, was also difficult. To develop Mina, I faced all of this, but this only increased the appetite to delve more into the subject and get fascinated. Every decision brought more decisions, and connecting them with the logic was perhaps the most challenging part. The ultimate goal, however, lies in making the script not only easier for the nascent users of the script, but also for the users who are enthusiastic in learning that language that has the 7th largest user base globally. The urge becomes more dire when we come to know about the extinction of almost 300 languages in the last 70 years, that is, post-independence since 1947. Through this project, I've attempted to get closer to the nuances of the Bangla script and learn the way they function through the contemporary practice in design typeface, in digital typeface design. I can't end this presentation without thanking a few people, especially Dave, who had been patient enough for believing in me, as this was my first font project and probably a stepping stone to professional typography. Professor Devobroto Bandyopadhyay from ISI Kolkata, Professor Girish Dalvi from IIT Bombay, Sarang and Nupur from MakeType, Priya from URW, and three of the most important friends I have here, Pathum, Kausala, and Randika. Thank you.